Так, глаза, очки у него тоже из стекла. О, печень. О. Шоу начинается. Скинь, ядрянки, фотку свою.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass Innovation Studio. My name is Abigail. And today I'm going to be narrating for you guys and telling you what's going on throughout this process. The real star of our show though today is Diego. Let's give Diego a nice warm welcome to the stage.
Олег.
We're starting off this piece the same way we start off every piece in our hot shop, with a small gather of glass out of our melting furnace.
Вау. Какой у него
Gathered up
наконечник.
some glass here and then
Миша,
we are
смотри.
centering it on its axis, just like a ceramicist
Вообще.
would center clay on the wheel. We're doing this with a tool we call a block. That is a wooden scoop tool. It's made of cherry wood, has a nice tight grain so it burns out nice and evenly, and has a lower sap content but it doesn't leave a residue on the glass. That tool works because it's soaked in water 24/7 when it's not being used. There's always a layer of water on the surface, and that layer of water turns to steam when it comes into contact with the glass, allowing the glass to slide or glide along the surface, protecting the block from catching on fire, protecting the glass from any residue, and then we're going to get a little bit of air into the center of this piece. We're going to let this first gather, this first layer of glass cool down, and then we'll get another layer over top. Gathering is the term we use to describe how we get the glass out of the furnace, but it's also the term we use to describe the amount of mass in a piece. One gather is enough to make a small cup. Two gathers is enough to make something like one of these display pieces you see up here. All of these display pieces were made in demonstrations just like this one. This piece will be similar to one of these pieces, maybe, probably, but it will be completely clear. There won't be any color in this piece. Using a little bit of compressed air to cool this down. Just working a little bit faster, being super efficient, getting ready for the next step. We want this layer of glass to be able to withstand the weight and heat of the next layer, or the next gather. Getting our block out, getting everything nice and ready to set us up for success. And then we're going to come over to our furnace. Diego's going to dip the pipe just beneath the surface of that molten glass and turn in one direction, gathering up a lot more glass, doubling or maybe even tripling the amount of glass on the end of the pipe.
Вау. Откуда он столько берет?
If we wanted to put color onto this piece, we would do it about right now when that glass is super hot and glowing. We would pour something like this. This is frit. It's tiny little pieces of glass chopped up, super rich and dense in color. We would pour it on our table, and then we would roll the glass, this piece of glass right here, into the color, and the color would heat up so quickly that it would just stick to the surface of the glass. And we would get a nice veneer of color on the outside of the piece. We could do a couple layers to create a more even, more dense coloring on the piece. Now the way that we get the color into the glass, that's the way we apply it, but the way we actually get the color in here is, we don't make it here, but if we were to make it here, we would have a bunch of furnaces, a different furnace for every single color. We would have a mixture of our glass, and then we would add a specific metallic component to that mixture. Right here is iron oxide. This is just one example of a metallic component you can add to the glass. Iron oxide, or better known as rust, turns the glass into a brilliant green color. Other metal or metallic components that can change the colors of glass are copper, makes light blue, cobalt makes dark blue, titanium makes white, cadmium makes reds and oranges, selenium makes yellow, and gold makes pink. So if you like pink glass, you have a very expensive taste. It can be one of the most expensive glass colors to use or to buy. These are our jacks.
Вау.
Jacks are one of the most infamous glassblowing tools. It's the first one you learn how to use because they have a super important job, and that is to create a constriction line right at the head of the blowpipe. This is not that constriction line. This constriction line is going to be sort of a waist for the bubble, and we're pulling out a neck. This is the constriction line that's right at the head of the blowpipe. That's super, super important because we need to tell the glass where to break, and it's going to break right at that constriction line because we've created a weak point in the material. It functions just like the score mark on a chocolate bar. If you've ever broken glass before, you know it doesn't like to break in a straight line. It goes into very irregular shapes and pieces. So this allows us to control that breaking of the glass a little bit more. We're also using another tool at this point. It is that little tube that's connected to the blowpipe. That little tube is connected to a foot pedal. When we press on the foot pedal, about 1 to 2 pounds of air pressure are delivered into the pipe. 1 to 2 pounds of air pressure is only as much as it takes to blow out a birthday candle, so it's not much at all. That's all we need to blow glass. Traditionally, there would be another person over there waiting for Diego's cue, adding air however much, however frequently he needs. But we use the tube to give Diego a little bit of extra control. This right here is our reheat chamber. Our reheat chamber also runs at 2,100 degrees, the same temperature as our furnace. That's meant to reheat our glass back up to working temperature. Our working time with this glass is at absolute most 2 minutes, and this isn't enough glass to have a 2-minute working time, but if we had a lot of it, absolute most we could have 2 minutes to work with the piece, and 2 minutes is not long enough to make the piece we want to make for you all today. So we'll need to reheat it back up to working temperature to continue working with the piece, and this reheat chamber also protects from thermal shock. Thermal shock can happen anytime the glass heats up or cools down too quickly, changes temperature in either direction. As glass heats up, it expands, and as it cools down, it contracts. This can cause some thermal stress, and that thermal stress can be released potentially in the form of thermal shock, which means cracking, breaking, or exploding at the end of the pipe. We don't want that to happen, so we are going to continue to visit that reheat chamber, not only to reheat the piece, but also to protect from thermal shock. Now we're using our tweezers
Зайчик.
to pull a little bit out of the bottom of this bubble, and then our diamond shears,
Oh my
using
God.
that as a little bit of a tab to pull on, to
Oh
elongate
my
the form,
god.
using inflation and pulling to create this shape right now.
Рыбка. Это просто
Our jacks again to
пипец.
create a constriction line. They'll help us create that weak point to break the glass.
Потому что он сюда дает слабое место, где
Да.
стекло взломается.
Тогда
Tap the
Зачем
glass
так
and it breaks
красиво?
right off.
дурак.
And we go back to our reheat chamber.
Но он
Our working time at the beginning of this process was maybe about 30 to 45 seconds. Now that the piece is getting blown out, it's thinner, and it gets cold a little bit faster. We're moving towards maybe about 20 seconds of working time. And this will get shorter as we move throughout the process.
У них что в печке стоит?
So we want to make
Камера?
sure we don't force the
С
glass
ума
to do
сошли?
anything it doesn't want to do. If the glass is
Это
kind
не
of
GoPro.
resisting, we will just get some more heat, make sure the glass is always nice and happy.
Мы должны узнать, что за
The glass that we're
камера.
using today is called soda lime glass. It's made of 3 ingredients. It gets its name from the 2 added ingredients within the glass. It's assumed that the base of all glass is silica sand. And then those 2 added ingredients are soda ash and limestone. Soda ash is the flux. It's the ingredient that's added to make it melt at the lower temperature of 2,000 degrees. And then limestone is the stabilizer, making the glass, making the glass not degrade in moisture as quickly. There's lots of communication that needs to happen in the hot shop. It's very important to have really good communication between everybody that's working in the hot shop. And it's my job as the assistant, and I'll give Diego a little bit of assistance in just a couple seconds here, maybe a couple minutes. We'll see when he needs it. But it's really important that I try and make Diego's life as easy as possible. He has
Там стекло
enough to
растоплено.
worry about at the bench, so
Там
I always
стекло
want to make
растоплено.
sure that I'm bringing him exactly what he's asked for at the right time, the right amount. Do you want more glass in this? It's super hot. I want to make sure I'm a good assistant because I want to make sure that I have good assistants when I'm a glass or when I'm the gaffer. It's kind of like being a good friend.
Ты не смотришь, что он делает.
You would do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Фигню делает.
Kind of like not stealing your friend's candy. Something like that. I don't know.
Чего? Я тоже прослушала.
Записываешь потом.
О май гад, зачем было ломать, чтобы снова прикрепить что-то? Зачем?
Форму создал.
Там была же форма. Я нервничаю. Вау. Смотри, сейчас он... О-о-о-о. Ой, розочка. Розочка. Нет?
Ножка, наверное.
So we spooled that foot on. And then it's so thin we were able to cast it right off of the piece, shaping it up into a cone shape for the stem of this piece. And then in a second we'll work together to create a landing spot for a foot.
И сейчас это тоже оторвет. Да, что, стекло. Да. Халявное. Ломай не хочу. Спасибо, закрыла весь вид. Да, но тут интересно. Смотри, оно
Go back into the
входит,
reheat chamber
они
not only
снимают.
to reheat the end of this
Они
piece,
снимают реально
but
в
because
печке.
we're starting to really worry about
Я
that
знаю,
thermal
и
shock
большой.
element. The piece is getting a lot more rigid, a lot more cold. When I say cold during this demonstration, what I actually mean is probably about 1,000 degrees. Now I know that doesn't sound cold and it's not really, but it's where our glass stops moving. Diego's always keeping this piece turning, even when it's a little bit colder. I'm gonna make sure we keep everything on center. We're working together to create a mold between the two tools to flatten the disc on the bottom of the piece to create a landing point for the foot, and then we're making a marble stem, just a decorative element, that marble on the stem. Making sure this is all on center and ready for that foot.
Это будет переход к ножке.
Balancing the temperatures
Я уже смотрела на
really
эти
well here. Diego's doing a
вазы
really
и
good job at
подумала.
making sure everything is just the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold. It's important to make sure everything's on center, especially with these longer, taller vessels, because they might look pretty on center on the pipe, but then as soon as you set them on a table, they might lean one way or the other.
Как они снимают в печи? Кто-нибудь мне объяснит вот здесь в этом
Getting a little
зале?
bit of glass for the foot of this piece. Doing it in 2 dips. Our furnace is a little bit hot right now, so I need to just take my time in order to gather enough glass for this foot. You want more? Yeah? You want it? Spool it on again, same way we did the stem. And then for this foot, we're going to use a footing tool. This is a Swedish style foot. This tool may look simple, it's just 2 pieces of wood, but it is really difficult to learn how to use. Squishing the glass super thin. Anytime the glass is that thin, there's a lot that can go wrong. This takes a lot of focus to get a nice, even disc on the bottom of your piece.
Вообще кривой диск.
Подожди, сейчас. Тут Диего работает, он профессионал.
Again, using those jacks to make sure everything is on center. It's going to sit nice and flat. And then back to the reheat
Wow.
chamber to make sure those temperatures are okay. Anytime we add a hotter piece to the colder core, it's important to go back in that reheat chamber because you don't want to shock the glass by adding that hot piece to the colder glass. The colder glass could potentially crack or break. You can see that.
После того, что он сделает, у меня есть вопрос, какая камера у
You
них
can see
стоит в
that's
этом?
nice and on center. nice round disc for this foot. And then we're going to work together again with two tools to create a mold to make sure this piece sits nice and flat.
Немножко ходуном ходит, смотри. Пахнет горелым.
Now Diego's let me know that he has finished with the bottom of this piece and he's ready to flip it around.
Это немногословный такой.
Он работяга.
So what I'm about to make is called a punty. Punty is the technical term for the transfer rod.
Ты обратил внимание, у него нет излишек, он все ровно сделал и ни одной излишки. Пипец, я хочу за Диего замуж. У меня будет дома много стекляшек.
I'm shaping this into a nice Q-tip shape, the ideal shape for this transfer process. And I'm also working to steal heat from the glass. The glass for the foot we brought over was a lot hotter.
Давай уже Диего сел.
So that created a permanent connection. This is only a temporary connection meant to hold for the rest of the demonstration and then come clean off at the end of the demonstration. So making a Q-tip shape.
Что он делает временно?
And I'm going to present it over to Diego. It's not a counterweight. I'm going to center it on the bottom of the foot and make sure everything's running nice and smoothly. And then in just a second, we'll use some thermal shock on purpose to break the glass at the constriction line that we created right at the beginning. That chocolate bar metaphor, a little bit of water, sharp tap, and it comes right off.
Вау.
We reintroduce it right into the heat. That glass was cold enough to break.
Края.
It's close to that 1,000-degree point. We don't want it to get any closer to our critically cold temperature of 950 degrees. So we reintroduce it right into the heat and start reheating that opening back up to working temperature. This is the longest reheat of the entire process. It takes quite a bit of time. This gives us a really good time to talk about this view we're getting in our reheat oven. This view is from a camera that is behind the reheat chamber, not inside of it, just behind it with a couple fans blowing on it to keep it cool. It's looking through a little piece of glass just like this one. This little piece of glass is called fused silica. It's just pure silica sand, it doesn't have any of the added ingredients our glass has that makes it melt at the lower temperature. So this glass melts at 4,000 degrees, so it's perfectly safe inside of our reheat oven up at that 2,000 degree point. It's not going to melt. This piece of glass was developed in Corning, New York in the 30s right here. And when they developed it, they didn't know what to do with it because it melts at such a high temperature. It's really not super fun to stand in front of an oven that's 2,000 degrees, let alone 4,000 degrees. And it's just too expensive to melt glass at that temperature. So they sat on this information for a little while until NASA came to town and needed a glass for their spaceship windows so that when they re-entered the atmosphere, their spaceship windows wouldn't melt. So that's how this glass got its first use, and now it has another use here in our reheat
Я
oven
так и подумала, что не в камере.
so that we get this beautiful view on our camera. This view is pretty unique to the Corning Museum of Glass. Not many other hot shops have this view in the back of their reheating oven.
Искривил всю вазу, эх ты.
We've gotten
Нормально
that
было.
front part moving. You can see there's a little bit of a glow telling us that temperature differentiation.
Как блестит.
Diego's not paying too much attention to the glow. He, of course, notices it and is aware of it, but what he's really looking for is the movement.
Режет.
of the piece.
О май гад. Что он творит? О май гад.
We've made a pitcher trim. A pitcher trim is when you trim
Остановите его
one
уже.
side lower and one side higher for the spout.
Остановите его уже. То есть там камера в такой этой, и она не нагревает камеру.
Diego's asked for a lip wrap, so I'm going to gather up a little bit of glass
Вот я думала, что в таком
gonna shape
стекле,
it.
но я думала, что оно нагреваться должно.
on our marburing table and bring it over for a lip wrap.
Это для вина, что ли, сосуд?
Carving up a nice point for easier application of this lip wrap.
Вообще просто.
I'm going to reheat it, and then we'll apply it to the piece. Both of our furnaces, this furnace with the glass in it and then the one without the reheat chamber, can both be used for reheating, but it's really nice to have that secondary reheating chamber because we could start to get in each other's way, especially when Diego needs to maintain the perfect temperature for this piece. Oh, I'm sorry. Apply it to the lip of the piece. This takes a lot of focus, very specific place, and it's so thin it just melts right off. Right back into the reheat chamber, reintroducing it to some more heat, making sure that hot bit didn't shock it. This is just a decorative element. The lip wrap doesn't have any practical use. It's just a decorative element and a nice display of Diego's skill.
А ты говоришь, мотоциклы какие-то, моторы. Вот тебе,
Making
пожалуйста.
sure to get even that connection point into the reheat chamber, that temporary connection of the punty and the piece, because that temporary connection is very weak. We want it to be able to fail at the end of this process, but not too soon. It's important to get some extra heat on there as well, because if it got too cold, it would potentially fail. We use our jacks to open up the mouth of this piece just a little bit more. Make sure everything's on center, and then some diamond shears to stretch out the spout of this piece. This is called a gooseneck pitcher. Call it a gooseneck because it looks like a goose.
Все это время мы гуся
And
смотрели?
we're going to break off the little tab that we use to work on this piece.
Диего, прекращай тут все ломать.
And then
Уже
right back into the
заканчивай.
oven. So you can see our working time has gotten a lot shorter. Diego's giving me some more instructions. We're going to get another bit on the neck of this piece. We call this a collar. Anytime you're adding a bit of glass to the main piece, it's called bit work. You want it straight out of the furnace?
Да, долгий процесс на одну вазочку. Вот она еще такая прозрачненькая. Ух ты. Вообще, как аппетитно.
Call this a collar because it looks like a collar. And then Diego's going to turn it into a clown collar. We'd call it a clown collar because it looks like a clown collar. We're not super creative with our names of things in here. We're doing some twisting of the glass. Creates that clown collar look. It's just another decorative bit. It's not for any practical use other than maybe it would help you grip onto the picture, but just round.
А что становится с этим стеклом, когда они их туда кладут в эту воду? Или что там у них?
Gonna gather up some glass for the handle
потом
of
назад?
this piece.
Да, потом, наверное,
Take a little bit of glass and then I'm gonna get some
Что
more.
делают?
Думаю, сбивают.
Make sure we have enough.
Печку просто.
Вот я тоже думаю, что они там делают.
Кто там снимает?
Я там тоже снимаю.
Там криво, там получается.
Гусь.
Making this a cylinder, and then I'm gonna taper the top for a nice, easy application of this piece. Again, like I said, it's super important that Diego just can worry about the main piece and whatever he's working on. He doesn't have to worry about what's going on over here with this handle. I'm gonna reheat this handle back up to working temperature. it over and present it to Diego. He's going to attach it down to the piece, which is the easy part. And then the hard part comes once we cut this handle free. It's not like shaping a wet noodle. Flips it over and then reapplies it to the piece just at the right moment. It's gauging the temperature.
Ручка. Вообще. Офигеть.
And has a few seconds to shape it up.
Блин.
And then right back into the reheating run.
Собака
This is
Диего
probably our
просто.
last or maybe our second to last flash of the piece. We have a few more seconds to shape up that handle. It has a little bit of heat left in it before it becomes rigid with the rest of the piece. Make any final adjustments. And then at the end of this process, we'll break this off and put it into our annealing oven. Our annealing oven sits right now at 966 degrees. And at the end of the day, we'll send it down to cool down over the course of about 8 hours, releasing all of the stress, allowing all of the glass to contract at the same rate.
Все, снимай. Вау.
Right off.
Остужает?
Place it into our annealing oven,
Отжигает.
where it will cool
Обжигать
down
будет?
from 966 degrees all the way down.
Отжигать
Room
это
temperature,
отрывается танцевать
slowly
сильно.
releasing all of that stress. That brings us to the end of our demonstration. That's Diego, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming to see a show with us. Is there any lasting questions we can get to?
Про вот это спроси. Что они вот туда потом делают?
All right.
What do you do with the glass which sits on those metal rods?
How do we get it to stick?
Now, what do you
No,
do with
what
it?
do you do after that? You put it
How
in
do
the
we get it
water
off?
and
Yeah. So it's happened slowly, but the glass and the metal contract at different rates, and then the metal is stronger than the glass, and the glass eventually loses.
just falls off.
And it just falls off.
Not
yeah.
reusable?
Breaks right off.
And then you put it back into the oven?
Well, that glass that's broken off of the metal is technically contaminated because a little bit of metal comes with it every time. So that glass, it gets recycled, but in a different way. It gets sent to a facility that makes concrete or aggregate, and they use it for that. If it didn't come right off of there, if it was a bigger piece or a piece that we made that we didn't like, we would just throw it back into the oven.
Thank you.
Так они его используют снова?
А?
Или в
Они
ресайкл?
его в
If the glass has color,
бетон бросают.
recycle it?
Ну не
It would have to go to the facility for aggregate.
А мы не увидим вазочку?
Нет, оно там должно сутки сидеть.
Хоть бы показали.
Тебе ж показали.
Ну, немножко. Thank you so much.